Good morning, everyone. Dr. Ryan Doyle here, and this is this week's Mindfit Monday. And I want to remind you, there's a process that I'm going to introduce you today that I'm going to be doing with my wife, Tracy. And it's not intended in any way, shape, or form to be counseling, or it's not meant to replace a professional counselor or psychologist or psychiatrist. It is merely, merely, like I said, I'm just a chiropractor who has studied, I've studied psychology, and I'm just I study personal development, and I'll explain this as I get going with Tracy a little bit more, but through my mentors and gurus, there has been a series of questions that has enabled me to, on my own, this exercise is done on your own. If you get stuck, or if it really starts to bring stuff up for you on a mental, emotional level, that is a place, and it may be able to identify stresses that would be wise for you to consult your counselor or a psychologist, etc. But what I want you to understand is these questions are meant to be done by yourself, to look at the stresses that you may be experiencing and look at the stories that you're telling about what's going on, so that you can look into them a little bit deeper. You can start to reframe and actually see the balance in what is going on, and then look deeply into who you are, into what's actually important to you, your values, the mission, the things that are actually important, so that you can look at, well, am I investing in things that are important to me, or investing in things that are actually at this moment not as important, or even irrational possibly. But then what it does is it gives you the opportunity, once you've reframed, realigned possibly some of the stories, it also gives you the opportunity to respond aligned with who you are. And like I said, it's not meant to replace any professional counseling. It is just a series of questions that I ask myself on a daily basis. And Tracy has asked if she could step in, and in a very vulnerable situation, because she has experienced a high level of stress this week. She wanted to walk through the process and just participate, so that some of you that may be experiencing some level of stress at this moment can see kind of how the series of questions go along. And hopefully you can see kind of the process. I'll provide a PDF at the end so you can try this on your own. And again, I'm in no way a psychologist, a counselor, or a psychiatrist. I am simply a chiropractor that loves personal growth, and I hope that this can build on our Mindfit strategies. So I believe we're live. Give us some patience. There's a little bit of a lag time between what we're doing right now here and what we can see, whether or not we're live or not. What we'd like to accomplish for you today is a couple things. And for anybody that has had the opportunity to be following any of the stuff that we're doing at Backfit, from Get Fit, Mindfit, NutriFit. Last week in Mindfit Monday, Dr. Marissa Bentham dropped an incredibly insightful and informative Mindfit. And if you haven't had an opportunity to watch it, I want you to go to the Backfit Clinic Facebook page and watch it. She dove into the effects of stress on our body, and the effects of cortisol, and the effects of the long-term effect within the body. And I also want you to consider the following, is whether it's due to COVID, the situation now, any other stresses in life, whether it has to do with work, not working, additional work coming, or, I don't know how many conversations you and I have had, Trace, about you're now helping out in the office, you've got the kids, there's homeschooling, the bone broth. There's so many different stresses that are going on right now. And some of these things, even some of the challenges that come into our life beyond those things, have a tendency to create emotions inside of us. Emotions like anxiety, panic, fear, overwhelm, a sense of lost traction. And it doesn't, I don't even think it takes very much right now to create some of these emotions. And we're going to talk today a little bit about one that's happened to you recently that's put you into an emotional state. And I think that it's important that we understand that, particularly during COVID, if you're familiar with what your values, your unique values are, a lot of people describe to me that they're experiencing like a sense of withdrawal, or I mean, like, if I can speak for you, Trace, one of your highest values is connection, and connection face to face in an intimate way with friends, and lots of touching. But for you, a really strong emotional connection with good friends is non-negotiable for you. It's not like a want; it's a non-negotiable thing. So when our body doesn't, when we don't feel like we're getting that, we can actually go into a state of withdrawal, much like a drug or alcohol withdrawal, because the body actually starts to withdraw from the oxytocin and the serotonin that comes from deep relationships like that. Several people that don't have work will go into the dopamine withdrawal because they're not getting the work done, or they don't feel like they're accomplishing. Some people aren't exercising as much because they can't get into the gym, and their whatever story or excuse is coming up that they can't exercise, or they're exercising less. So the endorphin is coming. I want you guys to understand that stress comes in many different forms, and it can come from like a real life, life or death situation, but it can also come from some of the things that are coming up in life and creating neurochemical reactions. So I want to build, or we want to build today, on what Dr. Marissa brought up last week in her Mindfit, and she really started to get into the fact that when we're in a state of stress, ultimately your emotional brain takes over. Your body goes into a sympathetic reflex where literally 50% of the brain gets shut off, because your brain is now being occupied by the centers that are there to create survival mode. They're there to get you out. Cortisol skyrockets. That's okay in short periods of time to get you out of the fear. But when this is ongoing, it builds health issues. Okay, and one of the things that I want to just carry forwards from Dr. Marissa's conversation last week is in the years of work that I've done with people like Dr. John DeMartini and what was Deepak and
Dr.
Nima Ramani and Garrett J. White and Eckhart Tolle, there's been a series of questions. Byron Katie was another big one. There's a series of questions that I have been able to distill down into a process that we're going to share with you today, and we're going to provide a PDF that if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling some of the anxiety, fear, panic, even anger, resentment, if any of these things are sitting inside of you, we can self-regulate through meditation and exercise and calmness, etc. But if we actually just sedate or run away from the stories or the triggers of the emotions, what happens is they will continue to spiral up. What I've learned is they continue to come back up. It's like a computer program that's running in your subconscious, and it's actually taking up energy whether you realize it or not.
The same stories continue.
Same stories will just come up in different scenarios. And then unfortunately what's happening is right now we're pretty much isolated with our children, etc. And guess what? They're feeding on our energy, right? So we want to share with you guys today a bit of a process. We're going to provide a PDF as soon as we're done, so that you can acquire it. And if you also would like to have the opportunity to go one step further beyond meditation and bringing awareness to your stress and exercise or any other form of sedation, and trust me, I have been an expert in just sedating away and self-regulating without going deeply into the emotional trigger for years, millions of different ways. And I mean, if you want to go deep down into sedating with alcohol on the weekend or over exercising when I did triathlon. I have been I've been an expert in both, I would say, destructive and constructive ways of sedating away from dealing with the actual trigger. So this is the process that I would like to have you guys consider. And today, Tracy is bravely volunteering to be somewhat vulnerable about an experience that she's had recently that's really hit home. And we invite you to participate in following through and watching how this process works. And ultimately, I want you to remember, I am simply a chiropractor who loves human behavioral psychology and personal growth, and these are just a series of questions that ultimately you do on your own. And when asking these questions, it gives you the opportunity to reframe some of the stories that you're creating inside about the situations that are occurring, that particularly if they're destructive, to then realign back to your inner soul. Sometimes even that wounded inner child that you don't realize is sitting inside of you, but it realigns with your values, the mission that's brewing inside of you, and then you can start to react and take action aligned with your soul. If this seems, if that sounds like something that speaks to you, this process will be very valuable for you. You had a question?
So sometimes I know when I first started personal growth and learning all this stuff, it's a completely different language. So do you just want to explain a little bit about how you figure out your values and how you figure out your mission, and what is a mission? Like, how do I know about my mission?
That's a great question, and thank you. So as you watch us go through the process today, you will see and notice that Tracy's done a lot of inner work. So when I ask questions about what are her values, she knows them like this. You'll see that. She also knows, what her mission is. There's a mission that's inside of all of us, and typically a mission comes from some of the deeper work that we've done in life, that when you apply it to your values, I believe we all intuitively have a good idea of what our mission could be, but sometimes being really crystal clear and certain about it, and having the strength and the courage to follow your mission is difficult when we're in the midlife triangle of chaos, when we've got bills to pay and kids and relationships. You'll notice Tracy's quite clear on her mission, and it guides her. And when the clearer, I want you to consider that the clearer you are on your values and your mission, the easier this process is. And if you would like more information about how to distill your values and how to distill your mission, comment in the feed below where this video is being dropped, and I'd be happy to help you with that. To answer values, ultimately values are going to come out. They're going to be the things that show up everywhere for you. And you'll hear me talk a lot about this when I do my coaching. For me, my values are adventure, accomplishment, inclusion, and edge. You'll notice that Tracy has some that are similar and some that are different, but when you distill it down, those show up wherever you go. And it's not like we don't have values about family and values about work ethic, but these are our core values that I'm talking about. Does that help a little bit, do you think? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, the purpose of the series of questions, and yes, I've titled it in a very masculine way, so I want you to take this. Byron Katie calls her process of the work. Garrett J. White, the stack. Nima Ramani, the overview experience. You can look into all of these different processes. John DeMartini calls it the breakthrough experience, or the DeMartini process, or the quantum collapse process. This I call the Patriot Missile mind game. And again, giggle as you may, the reason why it came out as the Patriot Missile is, if you remember back to the Gulf War, Patriot missiles were little missiles that the U.S. would shoot up to incoming Scud missiles that were coming in, and they would blow them out of the sky before they even reached home. And that's what I want you to consider, is that we have these little stories that are coming in to interfere with our life, and the little Patriot missile is going to come and challenge that, knock it out, reframe it, and give you an opportunity to realign with with something that's inside. You can see the gift of what's going on. You can realign back to you and actually focus and invest time and energy in a constructive way as opposed to destructive emotional ways. Does that make sense? Okay, so here's how we're going to do this process. I'm going to see if I can share this. We're going to go to this, and you guys can follow along. And like I said, this PDF will be available for you afterwards. So I'm going to go down. Okay, so I'm going to start with a couple of questions for Tracy, and I want you to follow along the process. And if you can just listen and kind of see if you can integrate the process as we go along. So Trace, why don't you maybe just tell us a little bit, tell us a story about what's been going on recently.
Okay, so obviously 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, COVID started, and I felt like my entire world turned on its head. All my routines were off. The kids were home now 24/7, and my life had just completely
disintegrated.
Yeah, just chaos ensued. And so as I was getting my routines back in, I've had lots of emotional roller coasters the last 5 weeks, lots of happy days and then crying and then back to happy again. Last weekend, I got the news, as did many other people, that place in Nova Scotia was, there was a mass murder. And for anybody who doesn't know, I'm originally from Nova Scotia. I grew up there. I still consider it my home. My children call it home. And it really hit me hard that a small community like just outside of Truro, it could happen, because that's ultimately, I grew up in a community similar to that community.
Okay. And so this particular experience for you elicited some interesting emotions, and we had an interesting conversation one night. And I didn't realize at the time how much it was affecting you, but maybe describe to the group, what were the emotions that you were experiencing as a result of this?
Yeah, I think the biggest emotion I was feeling was just panic. My sister, her community, she lives in the community that this all happened. I'm a very strong family person, so all I wanted to do was just run to Nova Scotia. I wanted to pack everything up and just go make sure my sister and my family were okay.
Okay, so panic was the overwhelming thing for you.
Panic was the biggest one.
Right.
Yeah,
and I want to remind you guys, and those of you that are listening or watching this, that when you go into panic or fear or anger or any of those types of emotions, half of your brain, literally half of your brain stops. Like your brain is starting to, it starts to become used for everything just to put yourself into survival, and the creative, constructive part of your brain actually starts to shut off. So this is why if you ever see somebody that's angry, triggered, mad, conversation's over, because they're not even able to engage that logical part of their brain. Can you relate to this? Have you ever been triggered and all you want to do is yell and scream and nothing logical? Sometimes bad things come out of you. That's kind of what happens. Okay, so what do you feel then is the story that was going on inside of you at the time? So you're experiencing panic, but there's a story that's happening for you, and you're buying evidence to support it. So what do you feel the story was?
Yeah, I think I wanted to run home, make sure my family were okay, but I also admittedly went quite OCD in my own house, trying to make sure my kids were protected and safe. And because in my rationale, if it can happen in a small community like it did in Nova Scotia, why couldn't it happen here? So my I went super irrational
Your
with it.
instincts kicked in, didn't they?
Yeah.
And can I maybe have you consider that the story was something along the lines of, this isn't just happening in Nova Scotia, but this is like my family is in danger, I think, is kind of what I saw come up. Was that pretty accurate?
I got panicked about making sure everybody was safe.
Okay. So the next question then is, if you're following along the actual PDF as I go along, if you're ever experiencing some sort of an emotion about someone else, then the next part of this goes into the mirror story. Where do you do the same thing? In this case, this is just about a situation, and it doesn't have to do with other people. So the second story that I like to dive into a little bit is irrelevant here, okay? But what the third part of the story is, sometimes, again, accessing this part really requires the rational part of your brain. So it's important, if you're ever doing this process, that you're already self-regulated. That's why exercise and meditation and awareness is really crystal clear. So everything that Dr. Marissa went through last week is absolutely important before you engage in this, because if you do this type of a process while you're still quite emotionally charged, it's difficult sometimes to ask these questions deeply enough. But the next question that I'm going to ask you is, if you feel that something else should have occurred, I want you to consider that there are naturally about 7 fears and about 7 delusions that our brain naturally looks for. Okay, so you can see those on my screen if you're looking at this. I'll let Tracy just look at the list, and I'm going to get her to pick something off of it, and we're going to create another story here, okay? So of the fears and the delusions, I'm going to go probably on the side of the fears. So what stands out for you?
I think more of, I'm afraid of what will happen. I'm afraid of what will happen if this happens again in other communities.
And what if you don't have enough to maybe protect your family?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So as you can see, there's many different fears, such as, I'm afraid of what others will think, I'm not smart enough, what if I fail, I don't have enough, what will my family think, what will God think, I'm not physically able, I'm incapable, I'm broken. In this case, I think I'm hearing, what if this happens in other communities, I don't have enough to protect my family, I feel out of control.
Yeah.
Okay, so that becomes story number 2. So far we've got 2 stories, and let's keep exploring a little bit. Okay, now in the next part of this particular process, I want you to consider that triggers don't always have to be negative. I want you to imagine, and we're not going to do this part today, but if you've had a wonderful day, this process can also be done in a form of gratitude, which I would like to explore next time that we do this process. But today I'm going to walk you through a little. It's a visualization. So Tracy, I'm going to ask Tracy to go through the process, and you can follow along as I go. So Tracy, I'm going to get you to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to take 3 deep breaths. It's going to start with breathing in through your nose and releasing the exhale through your mouth. And breathe in through your nose and release the exhale. Breathe in through your nose and hold this last one, and hold this last one, and release the exhale. Keep your eyes closed. I want you just for a second to go into the feeling you first described when we started this exercise. Do you remember what that feeling is?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Panic.
I want you just to, for a second, I want you to go back into that feeling for a second. And I want you to go back to another time that you've experienced a state of panic. I have a vague idea that I know exactly when this is. Can you maybe describe to those that don't know you when this showed up in a big way for you in your life?
So in grade 8, my dad was away. He was in the military. He was in the military my whole life. And we got a call that my dad was found in a ditch. He had been beaten up, and he was in a coma in the hospital, and that's all we found out. And they ended up flying him back to Canada. He was in Puerto Rico at the time. And I didn't know if my dad was going to come back alive. So it put me into a state of panic.
Let me pause you for a second. So if you're listening to this, I want you to imagine for yourself that fear and panic that dad is not coming home, or the dad that I know is gone. Okay? So you can imagine that one's mind, one's brain is only going to tell a negative story about that. But I want you to consider that just for a second. I just want you to consider that there's usually a balance in the conversations that are going on, but we don't necessarily look for the evidence to support the balance. So what happens is it becomes an overwhelmingly negative story, and then if we don't dive into it and we don't process it, it runs in the background, and we can have these types of things occur in our life and continually taking up energy in our computer, if you will, and they shape our emotional reactions going forward. So close your eyes again. And I want you to remember back to that time, and I want you just to consider for a second, what would be the opposite emotion of panic to you in your words? One word emotion.
Calm.
Okay, anything else?
Control.
Okay, so where in your life at the exact same time as this is happening to dad did you experience calm and control? And don't worry, I can help you with this, but I want to see if you can dig it out.
Yeah, I think there was a calmness. My grandparents were around quite often at that point. So we spent a lot of time with them, and they created calmness within me. I was really close to my grandparents. Control, my mom ran our ship at home, so even at that point, once my dad got home, she went into full control mode, which put my stress levels eventually down.
There's one other thing that you did a lot of at that time.
And I played a lot of basketball. And so that was my outlet, I guess, that created a lot of calm feelings within me.
Okay, and so again, if you're following this, I don't want you to consider that the experience of her father being injured was good. What I'm saying is that there is a balance to our experience that's going on, but our brain will focus on the higher emotional entity, whatever we put more emotional energy into. But I want you to consider for a second that Tracy, at the same time that she was experiencing panic, also had calm and control going on at the same time. So that's going to play a bigger role here in a second. So what I want you to do right now is you describe to us that you had been experiencing, maybe still are experiencing a little bit of panic about what's going on in the world, from COVID, the uncertainty, to people murdering people in your home. I want you to go to now. Give us some examples of where you're experiencing calm and control now.
Well, I think I have set my week up again, so it's very scheduled and very I know exactly what my days look like. Organized, thank you. And that's been really important to me, so that I feel in control, which calms me. My anxiety will get higher if my day feels out of control or feels more chaotic. So the more I have myself organized in my week, the more calm I feel, the less chaos I feel.
And what else? Where else do you feel calm and control? How about working in here? Tracy, just so you know, Tracy is back working with me, helping patients because of the weirdness of COVID. So she's helping us, and she hasn't worked in Backfit for years. And when she's in here, it's like she hasn't missed a beat. So I'm just going to point that out to you, that calm and control and assertive when you're in here in the office. What else?
My exercise, I guess. I exercise every single day. And more so that way, again, if I'm having any anxiety or anything, it calms me.
Awesome. What else? Bone broth.
Bone broth. So I have a bone broth company that creates for me calmness and control. It's I'm the only one working in there right now. It's my business.
And you've got a lot of demand for that, which is nice.
Yeah.
Okay. One more. Let's think of one more area where you're experiencing calm and control. Who do you reach out to?
My friends.
Could be friends. Right now, I think I'm just speaking out loud and kind of throwing out ideas, but without being able to see each other in each other's faces all the time, are you able to reach out to people and still having some of that connection, creating calmness when you're doing hikes or anything like that?
Yeah, I think my girlfriends and I are definitely staying connected, and being able to see them through FaceTime and things like that also create a bit of calmness in me, because I'm able to connect in with them, even if it's just through virtual. I'm able to connect in with them and not just rely on Ryan and the kids to fill my connection cup up.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So again, all I'm trying to do is I just want those that are watching to see that it doesn't mean that what's gone on is good. We can judge it whatever way that we want. I just want you to be able to see that the story that we will look for is we will invest more time when it feels unbalanced. And so I just want you to consider looking for those things that are in the opposite part of the spectrum. So think back to when your dad went through his stuff, okay? And the person that you are now, what would have been some of the drawbacks had you not experienced or had that experience in your life? Because we've talked a lot about this. I
really struggle with this one, because for me, I really want to be focused on how hard it was and how scary it was. So Ryan usually has to help me pull this one out a little bit.
Okay. What have we talked about in the past?
And I feel like my family and I were always really close, but my family became so much more closer after that, which we are all now super, me and my sisters are very family oriented, and we still are within our parents, but also now with our children. I think we all,
and when your dad was hurt, you guys rallied hard, and you have a unique bond in your family, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, that would not have occurred had this not occurred. Okay, so now let's take that same energy, okay, the strong bond that was formed as a result of going through that difficult experience, and do you see now why today's trigger is now benefiting you? So you're going through COVID, you're going through all the stuff that's happening in Nova Scotia. What did this type of panic experience do for you when you were young? It got you closer with your family. What's happening right now?
We're talking a ton.
Okay. Do you see where we're going with this? Sometimes what happens is we forget to look for the actual gift that's occurring as a result of the situation. I don't know that our family, I don't know that we have been closer than we have at this moment. And the more that these panic and these fear things come up, we just get tighter and tighter and tighter. And
I keep pulling in closer and closer.
and we don't even, sometimes we don't even see this. Okay, so let's continue the process. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to tell a different story. Now that we can kind of see that there's a bit of a balance and a gift that's going on in all of our experiences, what I want to do is we're going to go deep into Tracy's soul, into her a little bit. So why don't you share for the group, what are your top 3 or 4 values, Trace?
Valuable, connection, accomplishment, and travel, adventure.
Okay. And what's your mission statement? What's your mission to you?
My mission is to create healthy products to connect me to my community and provide health. Whether that be through Backfit, Bad to the Bone Broth.
Yep. Yeah. So you create situations and products that connect you and your community in health. That's very, very true. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a fourth, in this case a third, but a fourth story that's aligned with that. Okay. So let's think about this. Adventure, accomplishment, valuable. Okay. I want you to think about when you're creating products and situations that connect your family and health. How could we look at the situation around COVID and what's happening in Nova Scotia and rejig it a little bit? Is there a story that you could come up that's more aligned with your mission and your values?
Well, I think...
And this, by the way, you guys, isn't easy. This is where you have to use your creative mind, which is why you can't be triggered. And
really difficult.
And I can help you, but I want to see what comes out of you.
I think within Backfit, I definitely feel valuable because I feel like I'm back to helping more people. It's become an adventure again in here, just with COVID. And yeah, there's a huge connection piece for me that it happens in here.
I want you to consider for a second that with all the hell that is breaking out around us, you are finding passion in Backfit and Bad to the Bone and connecting with your family. With all this that's going on, you're connecting with your family and your community in a way that is healthy, regardless of all of the other destruction that's going on around you. Okay? So listen, here's what I want you all to consider, is because this gets easier the more you practice it, okay? But if you're clear with your values and your mission, you just look at the situation in such a way that it's actually aligned with your values. Because if you're focused on what you're trying to constructively create as opposed to the distractions, challenges, obstacles, crises that are going on around us, it becomes very easy to get misaligned, and we call it a disconnection from our soul. Okay? So listen, this is what I want to do. We've just looked at, I'm going to reread the stories that we've come up with, and then Tracy's going to choose one. Okay? So ultimately, we're going to build and look for evidence to support the story that ultimately we choose. And she has a choice. Nobody gets to stop anyone from choosing the story, but these are the stories that have come out. Here's the stories that I've heard. Story number 1. Let's see. My family is in danger. That was the story that she was telling herself on Tuesday night. Whether it's rational or not, that is a story. Story number 2 is I feel out of control and I don't have enough because of what's happening here with all of the uncertainty and what's going on. That's story number 2. Story number 3 is I'm finding passion in helping patients at Backfit, helping people with bad to the bone, connecting with my family in such a way that I'm creating connection in my community in the form of health. So my question to you is, which story would you prefer to focus time and energy on?
Number 3, obviously.
Okay, do you guys see this? Ultimately what happens is that when we, the stronger the emotion is, the further away from ourself we really are. Okay, and we can spend time and energy if we're in fight or flight because our life is in danger, but when it is an irrational, or if it is something that doesn't need time to be invested, then what happens is we are actually just disconnecting from what's important to us in our values and our mission, and we will feed it. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to fast forward a year from now. Okay, so with respect to all of the uncertainty, this was the original trigger, the uncertainty that's out there right now, from mass murders to COVID, etc. What would you like to create aligned with the chosen story regarding all of the uncertainty? What is something that you would like to create a year from now? You're looking back. What would you like to? Where would you like to be, aligned with your mission and the story?
A deeper impact on actually helping people stay healthy and get healthier through bone broth, through Backfit. Me feeling connected to them doing that, but also feeling just as connected to my family and my Nova Scotia family.
So what are you noticing about what you're talking to me about right now versus where you were investing energy on Tuesday? What's different?
I'm investing energy on the positive
things that you're in control of and aligned with you.
Yeah, and not the panic and anxiety.
So do you see? So I would just want you to see for a second that this is a game, because ultimately, when we're finished this conversation, Tracy has the ability to go back to focusing on panic. She can do that, or she can really focus on what's coming from her heart
and what's important
to her, and what she is in control of. Okay, so this is part of the process. Okay, so let's just go through a bit of a summary, and this will be in the PDF. I've got this in other versions as well. I've got it online, etc. You can talk. Just ask questions in the below the video. Okay, based off of your values: accomplishment, connection, adventure, mission statement, create products and services that connect my community through health. The chosen story is that you're connecting with patients and people in the community through Backfit and Bad to the Bone, and your family in serving health. What you want to create, the lesson or the epiphany, is that when you focus on things that are aligned with you, as opposed to the chaos that's out there, because there is an endless amount of chaos that's out there, trust me, and you want to create more impact that's aligned with you, as opposed to investing time on all those other things. What is the one action that you think that you could take control of today? And this is where this process one of the best solutions to anxiety and emotions is taking action. So what's one thing that you could do just today, simple action, that would move you in a direction that would provide that control for you, aligned with your mission? What's one thing you could do today?
I'm going to the kitchen.
Go to your commercial kitchen.
Tonight. I'm going to the commercial kitchen tonight to make bone broth for my bone broth clients for tomorrow morning.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And it brings you back to focus.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what I want you to remember when you're doing this process, you can do this as often as you can. Some of the stories will come up over and over, and they will continue to come up until you automatically start switching the circuit inside of your head. Okay. Now, what I always encourage people that I coach or that I work through is just to look at some of the actions that you can do. In Backfit, we look at what can we control within our body. So we look at spine fit. What can we control, as far as appointments or treatments or curve correction foams. Look at food, NutriFit. We look at, what are we putting in? I'm on keto right now. Tracy's on paleo. If you're doing something, you're focusing on greens or any sort of nutrition program, what are you putting into your body? We look at Mindfit, meditation, exercises like this, okay, where you're just asking yourself a series of questions to reroute and reframe what's going on and then realign back to who you are so that you can take action connected with yourself. I also want you to consider, so we did spine, exercise and activity, mind, NutriFit. Those are the big keys to what it is that we recommend. Because again, if you're creating space or gaps between where you are and where you feel you should be, you will spend time invested in that space between there. And if you've got time to think about the chaos that's out there and all the fears that are out there as opposed to actions that are aligned and important to you, this is where I think most of us run into trouble. And you'll hear me talk a lot about the gap, where we spend and invest a lot of our time. Mm-hmm. All right. So listen, I hope this has been helpful. This was a long process, and obviously this can be hand drawn out. Okay. It can also be it can be done in a couple of different ways, which I'm not going to go into. I just want to keep it simple for right now. I will have a PDF available underneath this broadcast later, probably by Monday. Okay. Probably by later in the day, but you'll see a PDF if you'd like to experiment with walking yourself through those questions. If you yourself are struggling with emotions and stress that you just can't quite get it out of the way, and again, I have a habit. I encourage people to do this particular exercise daily. I do it every day, and it's just for me. It's like, if I'm going to build my muscles or if I'm going to build my fitness, it's a habitual experience as opposed to reacting to things, because we will react to heart attacks, we'll react to pain, and then we go and deal with it, but those things are coming as a result of our habits. So if we're not training our brain on a regular basis, I want you to consider that things build up and we will blow up. Same thing with our back. Same thing with our fitness, same thing with our relationships. I want you to consider that if you can work on your mind, your relationships, your body, as well as all those other things that are going on in life, if you can create a habit around doing exercises like this, it gets easier and you get a higher sense of control and a better sense of joy in your life. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you, Tracy, for participating and being vulnerable. I appreciate it. Let us know if you have any questions underneath the feed today. I hope you appreciated the process, and bye for now.